There comes a day in every person's life when something quietly shifts inside. No lightning bolt, no dramatic announcement. Just a clear, honest realization. The realization that where you are is largely because of what you've done, what you've chosen, and what you've tolerated. And more importantly, where you are going will depend on what you decide from this moment forward. Most people spend years waiting for circumstances to change, waiting for the right opportunity, the right break, the right person to arrive and make things better. But progress doesn't begin with waiting, it begins with ownership. The moment you stop saying, "if only," and start saying, "it's up to me," life starts to respond differently. Taking responsibility doesn't mean blaming yourself for the past. It means reclaiming your power over the future. You may not have caused everything that happened to you, but you are responsible for what you do next. That's the turning point. That's the day life stops happening to you and starts responding to you. When you accept responsibility, excuses lose their grip, complaints grow quiet, and in that silence, clarity appears. You realize that discipline weighs ounces, but regret weighs tons. You begin to understand that success is not something you pursue. It's something you attract by the person you choose to become. This is not the easiest day of your life, but it is one of the most important. Because the day you finally take responsibility for your life is the day you stop drifting and start designing. The moment responsibility enters your life, blame quietly exits. As long as a person believes someone else is the reason for their problems, progress remains impossible. Blame may feel comforting, but it is costly. It gives away power and replaces action with excuses. When you take responsibility, you stop pointing outward and begin looking inward, not with guilt, but with honesty. You acknowledge that your results, good or bad, are connected to your choices, habits, and standards. Building a better life begins with this awareness. Responsibility is not about punishing yourself for mistakes. It is about positioning yourself for growth. When you accept that you are the primary architect of your life, your mindset changes. You no longer wait for motivation, permission, or perfect conditions. You understand that improvement starts with what you control, your effort, your attitude, and your daily decisions. The person who takes responsibility becomes proactive instead of reactive. Challenges are no longer seen as unfair interruptions, but as opportunities to develop strength and wisdom. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" the question becomes, "What can I do about this now?" That single shift separates those who stay stuck from those who move forward. Blame keeps life small, but responsibility expands possibility. It teaches discipline, encourages consistency, and demands higher personal standards. When excuses are removed, action becomes inevitable. This is where real building begins, not someday, not when circumstances change, but the moment you decide to take ownership and start shaping your life with intention. Personal growth always begins at the point where comfort ends. As long as excuses are allowed to survive, growth remains delayed. Excuses sound reasonable and often feel justified, but they quietly steal momentum. They provide explanations without solutions and understanding without improvement. The decision to grow is the decision to stop negotiating with your weaknesses and start challenging them with honesty and discipline. When excuses end, awareness begins. You start to see patterns in your behavior, habits, and thinking that have been holding you back. This awareness is not meant to create shame, but responsibility. Growth is not about becoming someone else. It is about refining who you already are. Every weakness recognized becomes an opportunity for development, and every limitation acknowledged becomes a starting point for progress. Excuses often disguise themselves as circumstances. Lack of time, lack of resources, lack of support, all common reasons, yet rarely the real issue. The real issue is often a lack of commitment to personal improvement. Growth demands effort, and effort demands discomfort. The moment you stop explaining why you cannot change is the moment you begin discovering how you can. As excuses disappear, discipline takes their place. Small, consistent actions replace hesitation. You begin to value progress over perfection and responsibility over comfort. Growth then becomes a daily practice rather than a distant goal. The individual who commits to growth understands that improvement is not an event, but a lifestyle shaped by choices made repeatedly, especially when no one is watching. Ownership is the foundation upon which meaningful change is built. When a person accepts responsibility for their choices, they regain control over the direction of their life. Many people hope for improvement without changing the way they think or act, but hope alone has never transformed a future. Change begins the moment you recognize that your decisions, not your desires, are shaping your results. Every choice, no matter how small, carries weight. The way you spend your time, the standards you accept, the habits you repeat, these are not accidents, they are selections. When you take ownership, you stop viewing your life as something that happened by chance and start seeing it as something created through daily decisions. This awareness brings clarity and purpose because it reminds you that progress is always within reach. Accepting ownership does not mean denying challenges or difficulties. It means refusing to let them define you. Circumstances may influence your starting point, but they do not determine your destination. When you accept responsibility, you shift your focus from what is out of your control to what is firmly within it. That shift creates momentum. With ownership comes accountability, and with accountability comes growth. You begin to evaluate your actions honestly and adjust them intentionally. Excuses lose their appeal because they no longer serve your future. You realize that improvement is not about waiting for the perfect moment, but about making better choices in the present moment. The future begins to change when you consistently choose actions that align with the life you want to build. Many people move through life expecting rescue. They wait for someone to notice their potential, to offer them an opportunity, or to remove their obstacles. This expectation keeps them passive, dependent, and often disappointed. The truth is simple and uncomfortable. No one is coming to save you. And once this truth is fully accepted, it becomes incredibly freeing. When you stop waiting for rescue, you stop delaying your life. You realize that progress has always been available, but it required personal initiative. Responsibility replaces entitlement, and action replaces hope. Instead of asking who should help you, the question becomes what you can do with what you already have. This mindset shift creates urgency and independence. Depending on rescue weakens personal standards. Taking responsibility strengthens them. When you accept that your growth, discipline, and improvement are your own responsibility, you begin to act with intention. You develop resilience because you no longer rely on external validation or approval. You become resourceful, learning how to adapt instead of complain. This realization is not meant to isolate you or reject support. Guidance, mentorship, and cooperation still matter. But the difference is clear support becomes a supplement, not a substitute for effort. You lead your own progress instead of outsourcing it. The strongest individuals are not those who were rescued, but those who decided to rise. They understood that self-respect is built through action, and confidence grows from self-reliance. When you stop waiting to be saved, you start building a life that reflects strength, responsibility, and personal leadership. The future is not improved by chance, luck, or sudden breakthroughs. It is improved the moment a person decides to improve themselves. Every lasting change begins internally, long before it becomes visible in results. When you make personal growth a priority, your environment, opportunities, and outcomes begin to shift as a natural consequence. Self-improvement sharpens awareness. You begin to notice how your habits influence your direction and how your standards determine your results. Instead of demanding more from the world, you begin to demand more from yourself. This shift is powerful because it places progress within your control. You realize that better skills create better opportunities, and stronger character produces stronger results. Improving yourself requires discipline, not inspiration. Motivation may come and go, but discipline builds momentum. Small improvements in attitude, consistency, and effort accumulate over time. What seems insignificant today becomes extraordinary when repeated daily. This is how futures are shaped, quietly, patiently, and intentionally. As you improve yourself, your confidence grows naturally. Not the loud kind, but the steady kind built on proof. You trust yourself because you keep the promises you make to yourself. With this trust comes clarity in decision making and courage in action. You stop fearing the future because you know you are becoming capable of handling it. The individual who commits to self-improvement understands a simple truth: life responds to growth. When you grow in discipline, value, and character, life expands to meet you at that level. The decision to work on yourself today becomes the foundation for a stronger, more meaningful tomorrow.